Sim Racing Expo 2022 is wrapped up. They moved from the ring into the city of Nuremberg. The space was far larger this year and everybody had a bigger area to play with. So let's go through what I thought it was interesting and loved about it. But keep in mind, I didn't have time for everything. All opinions are from my perspective and not everything in the expo was a finished product. We were expecting a few new products, one of them being the Acetec new direct drive and wheel ecosystem. It's an interesting new design with the potential to be a massive competition in the space. There will be 3 wheelbases. I haven't had time to test all 3, but fortunately I had a little bit of time in the main booth with the Invicta and then a little more of alone time in a separate rig with the Invicta and Forte steering wheel. In the Acetec booth, the settings were largely muffled, very dampened in Assetto Corsa, with a little more time to set up the software but still not enough time to properly use it. The wheel felt better, but there's still a little bit of dampening effect. As of this moment, of course, the wheel isn't yet finalized, so it might not even be the case on a follow-on product, or with a little more time if I had it, the issues could very well be resolved. In terms of details, it felt crisp and responsive to what was going on, very much on par with other more established brands. Sadly for testing, I couldn't really drift with it because they didn't have a round wheel. The wheel they had attached was the Forte wheel, which in my opinion, it feels a little bit like a toy, especially when compared with everything there was out there. However, they will have an open QR standard, which already has some partners in this space, and the QR is easy to use and really sturdy. Now that we are speaking of quick releases, Fanatec showed a more finalized quick release model which should hit the market soon. TM. The engagement is really straightforward with a very positive click. There is absolutely zero wobble compared to the QR1, and it will have a rock solid contact. It will require some intervention to make it work because you have to change the QR system. They are really working hard to bring it next year and also to resolve the stock availability issues they have on the wheelbases like the CS-LDD or wheels like the BMW M4. Which does leads me to the next point. Fanatec was able to have an early release of the iRacing BMW MPH. I'm not a prototype guy. I couldn't drive it properly like I can't any other prototypes in iRacing, I'm sorry. So I had to gauge the reception and impressions from other people, and it seems like it could be a very good car to take over the LMP1. Not far from the booth of Fanatec, I was informed that there was a company called GPX that wanted to bring a whole new ecosystem, including a 17 Nm base, roughly the size of a Mazda R9. Also more on the budget side as well compared to the power it has. The team there was very straightforward. They said outright, these are prototypes, so all the faults I found, and there were many, are understandable. The wheel is indeed strong, but I couldn't see if it was really 17 meters, and the pedals felt strange and the quality wasn't really the best. At the price they want to bring the wheelbase, around €700, it could be interesting when the design is more finalized. From old to established, finally we had Logitech. The Pro wheel generated a lot of interest and positive feedback. It's really good to see Logitech coming into SRE after years of missing out. One of the biggest booths out there, always full due to the interest and the competition they were running. I think their equipment had decent acceptance from the opinions I've heard, so it's good to hear that from more veteran sim racers and newcomers alike. Let's move to wheels now. Of course, we have the known M4 and Bentley wheel unicorns. The M4 should be wildly more available next year, and the Bentley now has less lag in the screen and also a really interesting feature that you can see like the track going through there. Sturdy wheels as well. They're expensive. The M4 continues to be my favorite of the two. Stock brands that have stock, GSI adds their wheels, and once again in a much bigger booth. All of the wheels were there this year in a very Apple inspired way, including the new Hyper P1, but we couldn't try that. It has a very different over-the-top design. The construction is brutally good. It is amazingly solid, rigid and positive clicks from all the buttons, up there with the best. It's on the heavier side, but it will have some weight chopped off if I got it right from them. Also from GSI, I absolutely love the GT Ram. I know the looks aren't consensual even to me, but oh man, having one in the hands, the clicks, the driving with it, it is so comfortable to me. The buttons are also backlit, so it has a huge presence in your sim rig. It kind of feels like it should be on a supercar, and it's a great size for a round wheel. and has top-notch usability. Something really impressive is the new Asher McLaren wheel. I didn't have any wheel time behind it, but it's definitely Asher construction. The way the metal is polished, the clickiness of the buttons, the construction quality. The McLaren wheel with the screen is one of the better looking Formula wheels out there, so I expect nothing else than a great Asher wheel in a McLaren inspired garb. Though the best looking Formula wheel was Bavarian Sim Racing. It definitely looks like something it could be inside of a Formula 1 car. It's a very rigid wheel that is still under development, and it needs some, as some of the details could be better. The wheel could have laser engravings, sturdier switches with more feedback, but if you are looking for a super rigid ergonomical Formula wheel though, this one is very interesting. Compared to other years, movement rigs were more subdued. The bigger players were Versaro and MSim. I didn't try the Versaro personally, but I heard that the way they set up their rigs had a very sharp and fast response. The ones I've tried were from MSim, the New Terra, and the Alma. The New Terra rig will be a regular rig that has movement in mind, so it's prepared to receive motion. For those who don't want it, they can have it like any other rig. There was one with Mario Kart with some butt kickers that had no right to be that fun. They have movement, they can be 3DOF, so it'll have lift instead, and going around Nordschleife was a blast. The older, more established Almas do yaw, which is perfect for drifting. Attached to them, they had the new MSim Talento, so we're going to do a segue to pedals. The competition is really fierce in the space, and load cell wise, they felt the best pedals out there for me. The brake just feels natural, and the heel-toe movement is phenomenal. As good as the Talentos are for me, the wow factor in one of the big events had to be the Simucube active pedals. They are different. The best way to describe them is that they are an infinite pedal set. They work by having motors providing force directly into the foot, so that means they can do almost anything the software allows. They can have a realistic ABS sensation, so very close to the real thing if correctly configured. Because of the concept and the software, they can have any response programmed, like any pedal movement. They can emulate preload springs, elastomers, a more hydraulic feel, springs, fast response, slow response. Everything is done from the software. Brake pedal feel can be really fantastic, but the throttle pedal for some reason adds a little bit of a grainy feel to it. This is something that Simucube knows, is addressing, as well as any other necessary improvements they'll get with the feedback from the community. At $1,500 a pedal, and I do mean a pedal, as a full set it will hit close to 5,000 euros. It won't be for everyone. Maybe it will be the case you buy the throttle pedal from someone else and then you buy the brake from them. Who knows? Keeping the idea of being totally dumbfounded, here's something I wasn't expecting to be this good. And I swear, don't laugh, Coffee Racer. It is quite literally the most original idea solving a problem that everyone has: lack of usable space. So they have a rig that drops in and closes into a coffee table that looks really cool. It can be in your office, on your living room, it can be a stand. It looks like a normal coffee table or just a stand. The design is unique and the table is really rigid. There is a clamp attached to your seat that drops into the table. It will remove the sway as well, the back and forth motion you get from caster wheels when you're braking. For what it is super rigid, far more rigid than any wheel stand out there, and these guys deserve to be known. Now on to the event itself and my conclusions. It did suffer a massive change from Nürburgring. It's not a venue that would attract the imagination of pretend race drivers like myself. I will admit I was skeptic about the move, and I will be forthcoming as well. The event had massive issues that I'll be blaming on growing spurts. The hall at Nürburgring was smaller, so there weren't any liberties to take. The new EXPO is far larger, and some of the smaller booths were as large as the larger ones last year. This is great, though it created a bit of issues as some of the booths quit last moment. The way some of the booths were organized made that coming from a certain door you would be met with a wall in front and a large empty space at the left. The sim racing teams were isolated and not everyone knew they were there. I still prefer the old expo grounds, but the new area has so much more potential as an expo. I think this new area allowed for more creative ways for sim racers and companies to show their originality, respect, and love for the community. I've spoke with a lot of people that were in the expo, and behind the companies and the tiredness, you could really see their vision that they were trying to bring, their love for sim racing, people like Tony Kanaan and Suelio Almeida. You got to talk with people that develop their stuff, their difficulties and all of that, and it's far easier to do that when you're not shoulder to shoulder, even when the show got busy on Saturday. It was great to see the love from the fans of sim racing, talking to them about the hobby, hanging out with new and old friends, or listening to this git DJing with the steering wheel. I was impressed by it, and despite my skepticism, I was gladly proved wrong. I think I'll go again next year. Thanks to all that made it fun, especially to Craig for helping me out doing this.